Picture this. You're sitting in the audience for the big 8th grade school play. The lead actor storms onto the stage, looks right at the crowd, and literally shouts. He walks angrily to the door and slams it. Wait a second. Did he just say that out loud? He was definitely just supposed to do it. Well, welcome to today's explainer. We're going to make sure you never make that kind of embarrassing mistake, whether you're up on stage or just reading a script in class. Today, we're mastering the absolute crucial difference between dialogue and stage directions. So, let's just dive right in.
Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover the elements of drama, dialogue and gracious speech, decoding stage directions, putting words and actions together, and we'll wrap up with a godly learner.
All right, part 1, the elements of drama, building the play.
Now, whenever you pick up a script, you've got to remember you aren't just looking at a regular storybook. A script is actually a blueprint for a living, breathing performance. By the time we finish up today, your goals are to confidently identify dialogue and stage directions, understand exactly what their jobs are, and recognize why missing either one of them completely ruins the story.
So, think of a play as resting on two massive pillars. Pillar number 1 is dialogue, which is just a fancy way of saying what the characters actually say to each other. Pillar number 2 is stage directions, and this is what the actors do, how they move, and even how they feel. Knowing the difference here is absolutely essential. If you don't distinguish between the two of them, you might accidentally confuse a character's spoken lines with instructions meant for the lighting crew, or you might completely miss the mood and action of the entire scene.
Moving on to part 2, dialogue and gracious speech. Words matter. Let's put that first pillar right under the microscope. The real key here is understanding exactly what dialogue looks like mechanically on the page. In most scripts, dialogue is the text written directly next to a character's name, and it's meant to be spoken out loud. But you know, it's so much more than just talking. Dialogue is literally the engine of the play. It drives the story forward through conversation. It reveals secrets, it builds relationships, and it creates all that juicy conflict. It's exactly how we figure out what the characters are thinking and plotting.
And hey, speaking of words, let's look at how this applies way beyond the theater stage. Colossians 4:6 tells us, "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." You see, just as a master playwright carefully crafts every single word a character says to hit a specific purpose, we're called to carefully craft our own dialogue in real life. Our words should always be gracious, God-honoring, and genuinely helpful to the people listening to us.
All right, let's hit part 3, decoding stage directions, finding the hidden cues. So, if dialogue is the engine driving the plot forward, stage directions are kind of like the steering wheel and the emotional atmosphere. They guide the whole visual presentation. These are the unspoken instructions in the script. You'll usually see them separated visually from the dialogue, often tucked neatly inside parentheses or written in italics. And remember our hook at the beginning? Yeah, you do not speak these words out loud. Instead, they're telling the actors where to stand, what physical gestures to make, how to move around the stage, and sometimes exactly what emotions to show on their faces. They are those hidden cues that bring the printed word to visual life.
Check out this quick snippet right here. The script says, "She crosses to the window and looks out with worry." Notice how much information is packed into that one tiny sentence. It dictates physical movement, meaning the actor has to actually walk across the stage to a specific window, but it also dictates the emotional tone. She looks out with worry. It doesn't say she looks out happily or just casually. That one little italicized sentence completely changes how the actor plays the scene and, frankly, how the audience feels while watching it.
Which brings us to part 4, words and actions together. Sing it in practice.
Now it's time to actually apply these concepts and see how these two elements interact to reveal what words alone just can't do. We're going to start with one of the most famous pieces of dialogue in history. Romeo stands in the dark orchard and speaks, "But soft, what light through yonder window breaks." Now that is pure dialogue. He speaks it out loud with passion. It tells us he's noticing something beautiful and bright up above him in the dark. But right after that spoken line, Shakespeare gives us this unspoken action, safely tucked away in parentheses. Juliet appears at the balcony, looking down at Romeo with surprise. This is acted, not spoken. Notice how it perfectly contrasts and complements Romeo's spoken words. Juliet doesn't say a single word yet, but her physical appearance and her emotional reaction of surprise tell us exactly what's happening visually. The dialogue and the stage direction are working flawlessly hand in hand here to build a truly iconic moment. Let's look at how this builds a whole world. In the classic play, A Raisin in the Sun,
The brilliant playwright Lorraine Hansberry uses extensive stage directions at the very beginning of the script to describe the younger family's incredibly small, cramped apartment. She details the worn-out furniture and just the sheer lack of space. And why does she do that? Because it helps the reader and the production team visualize the setting. It makes you deeply feel the exhaustion and the financial struggle of the family long before a single character ever opens their mouth to speak a line of dialogue. The stage directions literally set the stage for the dialogue to live in.
Okay, just to make sure you've got these mechanics locked down, here are your 5 homework questions to tackle right after this explainer. Number 1, how are stage directions typically shown in a script? 2, why are stage directions important to a performance? 3, identify one example of dialogue from a play you've read. 4, and think critically about this one. How can stage directions actually change the meaning of a spoken line? And 5, it's your turn to be the playwright. I want you to write one line of dialogue and one stage direction for a short scene. Really practice blending those two elements seamlessly. You've totally got this.
And finally, Part 5, The Godly Learner, Wisdom Beyond the Page. Here at HeroesMart Academy, we don't just want you to be academically brilliant, we want you to be truly wise. We deliberately intertwine biblical morality with your education for a very specific reason. Education without morality can actually hurt. Just becoming more capable or memorizing more facts, well, that isn't the finish line. True knowledge and intelligence should equip you to make wise, God-honoring choices in your everyday life. Romans chapter 8, verses 6 through 7 teaches us that keeping the mind spiritually minded leads to life and peace. So as you pursue academic excellence, like mastering the elements of drama today, we really want you to keep your mind completely centered on God, on truth, on wisdom, and on making righteous choices.
And that brings us to our final thought for the day. The stage directions of your life are written by your actions, and your dialogue is heard by everyone around you. So how will you use your knowledge today to make wise, God-honoring choices? Take a second and think about how your stage directions, what you actually do, match your dialogue, what you say. Are they working together to tell a story of grace and truth? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Now take these tools, go ace that homework, and live a life full of incredible wisdom and peace.